This feature is an excerpt from a new book out from Island Press, Design for Good: A New Era of Architecture for Everyone, by John Carey. An architect by training, I've always been fascinated watching people experience design and the world around them. I believe that design functions in our lives like the soundtrack that we're not even fully aware is playing. It sends us subconscious messages about how to feel and what to expect. It's what environmental psychologists have long described as place identity, essentially that the foremost building blocks of our sense of self are actually the spaces in which we live, work and play. It's what I have to come to simply call dignity. What inspires me to write about design operates on two levels. On one level, my motivation is deeply pragmatic. I want to change the practice of architecture and design. I want to alter how we build and who we build for. On another level, I'm a believer in the power of design to change lives and to bring dignity to average people, the disenfranchised, and the poor. In a time of such heightened inequality, the ethical dimension of design has never felt more important. Well-designed spaces are not just a matter of taste or a question of aesthetics, they literally shape our ideas about who we are and what we deserve in the world. That is the essence of dignity, and both the opportunity and the responsibility of design. Across the world, I have found projects that hold lessons for those who want to dignify their lives and our shared world through design. Drawing on insights from my interview subjects and buildings they created together, I've identified 5 key lessons. Lesson 1: Embrace a beginner's mindset. In our work lives especially, we are conditioned to think of or present ourselves as experts. This assumes our studies, experiences, and skills establish a level of expertise worth imparting to others. But it risks our thinking that we have all the answers to a given problem without taking the time to fully understand the nuances of a situation, sometimes even blinding ourselves to the bigger picture. Embracing a beginner's mindset is one way that all building contributors can not just humble ourselves, but also gain entirely new knowledge and perspectives in the process. A beginner's mindset is a linchpin of the practice of human-centered design. One of the world's best-known firms, IDEO, and its non-profit spin-off, IDEO.org, have emerged as two of the biggest advocates for human-centered design. IDEO.org co-founder Patrice Martin explains it this way: what designers bring is the potential for new answers. While problems and needs may appear well-defined at the outset, we use a beginner's mindset to take a step back and to breathe life and creativity into projects. Martin tells me, it's about bringing in a fresh perspective and permission to look at the wider problem. In their own ways, all building project stakeholders, clients, users, laborers and others, have the potential to bring, and benefit from, a beginner's mindset. The non-architects involved may very well be the best positioned to fuel innovation because of their perspectives. For me, that doesn't necessarily mean that those stakeholders will all belly up to tables with butcher paper and crayons to co-design projects, in the spirit of yesteryear's focus on participatory design. Being human-centered doesn't mean denying that certain kinds of training prepare some people to drive the process and make important decisions at key moments. Instead, it means that all perspectives will be sought, heard and honored throughout the design process. The Butaro Hospital is the most storied example of a group of designers learning on the job. The group of Harvard graduate students inadvertently didn't make the same, often detrimental design decisions made in hospitals around the world, in part because they simply weren't experienced enough to be blinded by protocol. Their unorthodox decisions were driven by naivete and necessity. They contended with issues such as limited electricity, an extremely tight budget, and the need to ensure natural airflow to safeguard against communicable diseases. Those limitations pushed them as designers and, ultimately, made the hospital more, not less, dignifying. Other notable designers have never undertaken the particular project types they were presented with. Marina Tabassum's invitation to design a mosque in her home city, Dhaka, Bangladesh, is a prime example. Through research and her own intuition, Tabassum was able to forego the symbols, domes, minarets, and the like, pervasive in so many other mosque designs. Her beginner's mind led to an elegance that simply would not have been possible were she wedded to a because we've always done it that way mentality. Lesson 2: Seek partners, not clients. Women work in Helen's house in Nakuru, Kenya. Helen's house was completed by Orchid Studio in 2015. Photo by Peter Dibden. Architects and designers typically refer to the people they build for as clients, which is why I use the term. Unfortunately, the implications of that word are clear. The designer is the expert, hired by the client to provide a product or service that will, in theory, suit the needs of the client. It's top-down, and money is at the center of the relationship, neither of which bode well for a dignifying process and outcome. It also puts a beginner's mindset at risk. The best practitioners are distinguished in seeing and treating the people they build with as partners, not clients. Money is obviously necessary to getting the work done, but it's not at the center of the relationship. And the relationship is reciprocal, not transactional, built on genuine respect for the insights that everyone brings. When people feel like partners, not clients, they tend to want to work together over and over, as evidenced by repeat collaborations such as Skid Row Housing Trust's multiple projects with Michael Maltz Architecture in Los Angeles and Mass Design Group's recurring work with both partners in Health and Less Centers GHESKIO. It's also apparent in the way partners and designers talk about tackling difficult challenges together, solving problems, not pointing fingers. You can see the value of this kind of collaboration at the cottages at Hickory Crossing, a community for the 50 most chronically homeless people in Dallas. Central Dallas Community Development Corporation and the architects at BC Workshop sat side by side in the same office over many of the years that they jointly worked on the project. It was a long haul, full of daunting bureaucratic and funding hurdles, but they stuck with it because they stuck together. On the campus of Kalamazoo College in Kalamazoo, Michigan, Studio Gang and the college were able to work closely with an unusually design-conscious funder, the Arcus Foundation, to push through several challenging features now central to the success of the college's Arcus Center for Social Justice Leadership. The foundation gave the support the architects needed to experiment with an innovative exterior facade, and a hearth and kitchen unusual for a public building. Designed to foster dialogue, the latter two features required special approval and a shared commitment to seeing them through despite the odds. It's important to acknowledge that individuals and entities undertaking design projects for the first time are putting just as much or more on the line as designers. To reap the full rewards of partnership, designers also have to take risks and push themselves. When both groups do, the payoff can be transformative. Lesson 3: Build community support. Beltline advocates of all ages rally to show support. Photo by Christopher Martin. The first got goosebumps when the Atlanta Beltline's founder, Ryan Gravel, described the community support that bubbled up in the early days of that project. This truly, honest-to-God, grassroots movement of people who wanted something different. People fell in love with the vision for their future that was better than what they were seeing, he continued, and better than what the city was offering them. Traditionally, when it comes to build projects, the public has been seen as stakeholders, at best, and a hurdle, at worst. Architects and their partners actually have an exciting opportunity to rally support for projects, to turn the public into a community. This isn't just about getting approval from a city council or planning department, important as that may be. It requires that designers, in particular, listen deeply to community needs, reflect those needs back to the stakeholders, and reinforce their understanding over time. This goes beyond just educating the public, as it is often described. This is about imagining the potential impact together, building excitement around a project, and doing so collaboratively from an early stage. It is about seeing the public as the lifeblood of a future building, not an obstruction to appease. That kind of relationship building does wonders, not just for the reception of the original project, but for its long-term health. A community that owns a building or landscape project that benefits from it in terms of their own quality of life, is one that takes care of it over time, no matter the economics. Immersing designers in communities, especially ones that they are not native to, is another meaningful way to gain crucial insights and build community support. When designers live among and with their partners, windows into the real, lived experiences of people, beyond the confines of an interview or focus group, open up. Relationships form around more than just the building objectives. They form around genuine discovery of living together, asking questions, learning about one another's quirks and qualities. That makes for a much stronger foundation for a building than any formal setting. Lesson 4: Employ workers and source materials locally. Because of the cost and time required to transport an excavator from Rwanda's capital city, Kigali, the Butaro Hospital site was excavated by local laborers. Credit Mass Design Group. Hiring people and sourcing materials in the community where you are working is fundamental to ensuring a positive relationship between a building and the city around it. Use of local resources matters because it minimizes projects' environmental impacts that come with transportation of materials, and maximizes positive impact on local economies. Yet there is a disproportionate number of projects built outside the United States that succeed most clearly on this front. When I mentioned the importance of local labor and materials in MASS's work in a keynote address for the American Institute of Architecture students a couple of years ago, a student afterward asked why aren't U.S. projects held to that same standard. Talk about a great beginner's mind question. Indeed, why architects such as Michael Maltz working on LA's Skid Row highlight very real challenges to that goal for projects within the United States. In Maltson's case, the prefabricated construction method of a six-story apartment building designed to be permanent supportive housing for formerly homeless individuals was already a stretch to get through city planning. Without viable options for those prefabricated units locally, Maltson's firm had to go far outside the region, trucking materials in from out of state. After the project, Maltson commendably set about working with the city to advocate for prefabrication, including local manufacturing facilities.